Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Economic Times BFSI Tech Leaders Roundtable Series, Being Cyber Ready in the VUCA World, powered by Akamai. In today's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, rising customer expectations are disrupting every industry, especially those with a digital backbone. Leaders in the BFSI industry have been early adopters of technology to connect with their consumers and to enable their employees to carry out regular operations remotely. In the last 12 to 18 months, this trend has seen an upward shift, with users and consumers of banking and financial services leveraging digital channels almost exclusively to conduct their financial transactions. With this surge in both consumers and employees relying on digital channels to conduct their day-to-day operations, financial services organizations are struggling to attain the right balance between upscaling, performance, and security. Every financial organization today is part of an ecosystem of players that rely on each other to exchange business-critical data. With the growing usage of apps and APIs and the emergence of open banking platforms, today cybersecurity is one of the most important challenges that they must address. Traditionally, organizations have been implementing security measures on an ad hoc basis, which are saddled with patchwork security architecture that results in a high TCO. However, it is evident that increasingly data privacy and security are becoming fundamental building blocks of organizations. Thus, the topic is no longer a regulatory tick box or a product discussion. It is, in fact, a boardroom strategy. Companies recognize that lack of cybersecurity challenges the very foundation of any business that is growing digitally. In today's roundtable session, Being Cyber Ready in the VUCA World, powered by Akamai, we bring together exceptional leaders and experts from the banking and insurance sectors who will share their perceptions and experiences on how to strike the right balance between scale, experience, and security. Our esteemed panelists will touch upon topics like shifting priorities to support current needs, business continuity, remote work, and planning for transition to the next normal. Unified and preemptive approach to cybersecurity measures, securing apps and APIs, among other topics. Without any further delay, I would now like to introduce and welcome our power-packed speaker panel. Aseem Ahmed, Senior Product Manager, Cloud Security Asia Pacific at Akamai Technologies. Naseem Halder, CISO, Acco General Insurance. Pawan Chawla, CISO, Future Generali India Life Insurance Company. Abhilash Balan, CISO, GoDigit. The session will be moderated by Kunal Pandey, Partner KPMG. Over to you, Kunal.
Thank you, Rajshri. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this very interesting panel discussion which we are going to have today on the subject of being cyber ready in VUCA world. I have with me a panel which has rich and practical experience on this area, dealing with these matters for their respective organizations as well as others over a period of time. And I'm very excited to have this discussion and learn from them around their experiences, insights. I do hope that you will also have a similar learning experience and encouraging experience today. Cybersecurity has become really a boardroom agenda. And this is an area where organizations are putting a lot of interest and energies. We are seeing that in this digital world, cybersecurity is not just a risk mitigation measure, but is an important element to gain trust, which is very important to gain customers, to grow business, and to flourish. With that background, let me quickly get into the conversation. and start with my first question. The force of digitalization is resulting into anytime, anywhere, hyper-connected and collaborative business models. This is also exposing businesses to newer cyber risks. So Abhilash, I wanted to start with you and ask you, what is the top cybersecurity challenge that you are facing? And your thoughts on, how are you going about addressing it?
Thanks, Kunal. First of all, two important points that have come out during the introduction. One, this has become a boardroom topic. So that kind of importance have come in the recent year. Plus, cybersecurity is not just a tick in the box. Okay, so people have understood that, and basis that the controls have evolved. So if you really ask me, so during COVID, yes, the digitization has fast-tracked like anything. So a lot of companies who were traditionally used to the brick and mortar kind of an environment, they have moved to the digital environment. And for India, if you really ask me, the cyber risk has risen threefold. And specifically, if you look into the articles, so we have seen around 64% rise in ransomware-related attacks. Okay, the challenge what we are seeing right now is with respect to data breaches. So for an insurance company or a banking company, the customer sensitive data is of paramount importance. So any breach we have seen in last 3 or 4 months, there are a lot of companies who have been breached and their data being published over the internet. It has a direct impact, of course, on the reputation and probably the future financial status of the organization. So data breach, yes, it's one. Then comes ransomware related attack. Okay. So again, that is pretty complex in nature, but easier to execute. If you decide the target organization, you have to send hundreds of emails, one click and your system may get compromised. So that is how critical it is. You will have to deploy controls to ensure to identify, prevent or mitigate the ransomware threats. Third one, what I can recollect on top of my mind is email compromise. So for any organization, the first line of defense, as we say, is its employees. Okay, any payload, you talk about ransomware, you talk about phishing email, any threat, the first target is your employee. So business email compromise would be the third threat in my list. And yeah, I think that I would summarize my point here. I think, Kunal, we lost your audio.
Oh, sorry. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Sorry. Pawan, I wanted to move to you next and ask you the same question. So in your mind, what is the top cybersecurity challenge? And also if you could share, what are some of the things which you are doing to address this challenge?
Sure, Kunal. This is a very, very important point for any organization, because ever since we moved into work from home environment, the cybersecurity challenges have increased. And like Abhilash has mentioned, the target percentage has gone up to 64%. And today, I would like to add to what Abhilash said, that the ransomware attacks have increased. And today, if you go to the darknet, you can hire actually a ransomware plotter for as low as $40 per hour. And it doesn't take that long to plot a ransomware as well in an organization. But yes, considering all those facts and keeping those things in mind, ever since it has started since last year, January, if you see, there are more than 500 domains have been registered. And those have been registered not for business purposes. Those have been registered to plot various kind of attacks for in the organization. Now, if I look at those numbers, the numbers are, and as we keep on talking, the numbers are scary, can give goosebumps to any CISO in the organization. And at the same time, they will have nightmares whether they will be attacked at any point of time. to protect themselves from that, the important aspect, I always take the last point, which Abhilash take as the first point, is the user awareness. You need to make user aware of the kind of attacks which are happening in the organization. That will be the first prominent point. You need to keep on circulating the emailers to address that out, and that's what one of the challenge which we are addressing in the similar fashion. We are creating trainings, and we are passing those trainings to our users, our employees in the organization, so that they are well versed with the kind of attacks which are happening in the real world, and along with the steps what they should take to prevent themselves. The second important aspect is to look at is the user behavior. Ever since the people have moved in the work from environment, the behavior of a user has changed. So far, they were sitting in a restricted environment. Now your parameter security has changed from what is used to be the firewall, router, switches. You tend to put security at that aspect. Now has gone up to the desktop level, which a user is using, desktop or laptop, whichever machine they use. It could be a tablet, it could be anything. Now, it is very important because they are assessing your data to protect those machines, and specifically the machines in case you have allowed that they can use their own machine. So that is very much important. So one, the awareness again plays a very important role to let them know that what they should be doing while using their personal machine and what they should be doing when they are using the official machines. To analyze the behavior, it is very important to have an endpoint detection and response system in place, which we generally known as the EDR. So that you can do an analysis and see that whether there are any potential threat to which an organization can be attacked for, or shall prevent themselves from that. The third control is the data. The data is what they are accessing, whether it is secured in their particular desktop or not. So DLP plays a very important role. You need to have such solution in place to ensure that whatever your user is accessing, one, it has to be on need-to-know basis, whether you need to analyze whether they should be having access to that or not, or in case they need access, to what level they should need an access. When they were sitting in the corporate environment, it was much easier because you know that the outside world is restricted. But now the outside world is your business platform, and whatever your employees are accessing is required for them to have access to do business. And that's why that needs to be protected. They need to be analyzed, and they need to be monitored very, very rigorously. So these were the three primary aspects and challenges which I foresee, and any organization must be facing and should take an action to protect that.
Thank you, Pawan. I think very well articulated along with Abhilash, which you mentioned earlier, and identified few important areas which all of us are seeing. Moving further, Naseem, I wanted to take your thoughts also on the same topic. You are part of an organization which by design is heavily digital or only digital. So I wanted to hear your thoughts around what are you looking at as your top cybersecurity challenge, and what are you doing about it? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So first of all, I completely acknowledge whatever Abhilash and Pawan told. This is fact. We have to accept this. So now the basic things, earlier we are talking about challenge. Okay, I have to safeguard a laptop. I have to safeguard some traffic from some network. So the baseline is that, as on date, we don't have any defined perimeter, right? It's open. Earlier I know, okay, if anybody is using from my office, they were allowed to, go and access my crown jewels. Now I really don't know, somebody, from Australia, he's, he's working from there. Somebody's, in US, he's working from there. So I don't have any parameter. Even there are certain cases I have seen, in one of my friend told me that, there are certain users who, visited to Russia and they want to work from there. So as per their policies, like, you cannot access anything from Russia or China in that case, right? But there are challenges in that level also. So challenge is, I think Abhilash and, Pawan is actually, discuss all these school level challenges. The things are little change here. The surface area has been increased like anything. Most of us, we are never, think about that, within few months or few years, our surface area will be changed. So in terms of Echo, if I consider, Echo's digitalization or, cloud-born company, To be very honest, in terms of, if I take the core 3 parameters of information security, CIA, the availability is not a challenge for us, because, I think in a similar way, as per my best knowledge, Abhilash also don't have that challenge, or anybody who has having already in cloud, that is not a challenge for them. The biggest challenge is that, the confidentiality, how exactly you are going to manage, how exactly you are going to, define the perimeter. There are a few new concepts. I'm sure, most of the CIOs also heard about it, zero trust framework. I know they have implemented certain cases. Okay, how exactly I'm going to, trust a device, how exactly I'm going to analyze the behavior of a, user. Those things are really critical as on days, in these days. And you have to have that data, you have to have that analytics on that, and you should have that visibility. Then only you can able to manage this kind of new days challenge, right? Recent days, the RBI was, one of the famous, I'm not referring Reserve Bank of India, I'm sure, remote browser isolation I'm talking about. This kind of zero day attacks will always be there. And this VUCA world, whatever we're discussing, I can tell you, considering the situation, whatever we had, before 5 years ago, at that time, that was VUCA world. Today, we are in VUCA world. Even in future, we'll be in VUCA world. It's not going to change, right? Every day, we'll develop something to protect us. These guys are also have, they are also, I believe they are smarter, compared to us. So they will also, do some workaround on it, and they will come up with some new idea to, try to do something new attack on us. So this will be continuing. Our challenge will be how exactly we are doing. I think Vilas and Pawan already identified that, user awareness is the most important thing. Whatever tool you have, you can have DLP, KSB, Zero Trust Framework, so on, whatever tool have, if your user is, behaving, user is not much not, I can say the maturity of the user in terms of cybersecurity awareness is not there, you cannot protect yourself. So you have to build that thing. And I believe but the best way to build that thing, you have to tell your user, okay, hey, we are saying this thing, like if I say, if I take Kunal's example, Kunal will get a mail from his CISO or, his head of cybersecurity that, hey, you cannot do this data, you cannot do this thing with KPMG data. So I believe it should be in a different way around. We should tell Kunal or anybody in all the employee, what is the best practice for handling any data. It can be your personal data. If I make that habit to Kunal that, this is the way to handle any of my customer data. If somebody asking you over a phone call and say, okay, can you tell me your PAN number? Kunal should verify this thing first, then only he should give, if he is 100% sure about it. So it's all about the habit, what kind of habit we are building up. If you take all these e-commerce giant, initial days, they have given you a huge discount. They make you that habit that, hey, you need to get it from me, I will give you this much of things. Now they're making profit out of it, right? So we have to build that habit. I think it's an ecosystem. If Kunal build some habit in their in their organization, similar way I build some habit in my organization, Abhilash, Pawan or Aseem, everybody build that habit in their organization. These people will again going to swap each other, right? And this habit will be flow. So that's the best way, I believe, to protect ourselves. I think this is the best, or I can say most necessary step we should follow. And otherwise, yes, all these new age, cutting edge technologies are also there. Please leverage those things. And not only, I will say information security or cyber security, not only a board meeting matters or something like that. It's also become I can say feature of your product. Whatever product you are selling, you are selling insurance product, you are selling a banking product, you are selling e-commerce product. It's a feature. Today's world, people are really aware about their privacy, about their security of their data. So they consider is, okay, how exactly you are going to protect your data. So it's become a feature of your product. Take it in that way, build it in that way, so that your product will be, your business will be enhanced in this way. Over to you, Kunal.
Thank you, Naseem. I think very well said, and taking from what Abhilash and Pawan has mentioned. But I really like the point around habit. How do you really make habits? I was talking to someone, and we were discussing about that. We all know the benefits of, let's say, waking up early and going for a quick round of jog. I think that's well known. But how many of us do it? And probably the reason is because of habits. So habits are clearly really important, and user awareness is is an important element we see. One of the things which I think all of you are saying, and I'll put it a little differently. I was talking to my, kid yesterday only, and this term keeps on coming up. The classes are online. When will they become offline? The term offline for the normal world has started, coming in last few months because of the COVID situation, and the world has really changed. And this technology world is becoming more and more complex. And especially in the financial services side, we are seeing that the digital world is, seeing proliferation of digital assets. The boundaries are getting blurred, as the panelists were mentioning, and definitely new threat vectors are emerging. We're seeing, uptake of newer mechanisms to offer service to the customers, whether it is around APIs, whether it is around microservices, and things of that nature. And in this side, while yes, user awareness is clearly a very, very important thing, we clearly see that is not probably only the mechanism, and that's not enough. So in this case, Aseem, I wanted to come to you and ask you, from your experience of seeing things around the world, what has been your experience around building strong security when organizations are increasingly offering more and more digital offerings? And that's clearly the case when it comes to financial services sectors. So Aseem, please, if you could share your thoughts to the audience. Aseem, you're there?
I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's a great question, Kunal. Thanks. So given that most of the businesses are today, digitally first, or most of them even digitally native, right? We've heard many examples today from our friends. It's definitely imperative that security becomes a strong foundation, right, of everything and if the business do. I really liked, some of the comments from my colleagues here, talking about secure coding practices, building products ground up with security in mind. One of the key challenges, rather, in today's world is how open you want to be and how secure you want to be at the same time, right? And that's typically what you mentioned for banking and insurance alike. This is a challenge that's coming more and more upfront. As you open your doors, integration with third-party services, third-party partners, that drives your new revenue streams. You're booking a cab, you go into the cab, and suddenly in the app you get an option to save your trip, right? You're basically channelizing to a third party where you say, I want to buy the insurance for this trip, right? Few years back, that option didn't exist. Few years back, you were at the God's mercy. You still are, but you're just thinking, right? I'm going in the right. I've finished to go to my destination. That's it. But today you can apply for a credit card within your taxi aggregator app. You can apply for insurance from there. All of this has happened because of the way digital ecosystem has grown, and your APIs are interconnecting multiple things, multiple systems, multiple partners, right? So one of the key challenges of obviously, how do you protect your data in such big ecosystem? Not just you, your partner, your users more, right? As we just heard, the users are very, very focused on protecting their data today. They don't want to be getting an email from an organization, you need to reset your password because it was leaked. That's becoming increasingly common. So with the cloud adoption and the forefront of digital acceleration that we are seeing today, the bigger issue is how do you secure at scale? How do you protect that data? Do you have visibility into what you need to protect? Because if you can't protect, you can't really protect something you don't know about. And that's one of the challenges that we see in the cloud today, right? More and more products, features getting launched. Many security teams are not aware of what's coming up, how frequently it is changing. So if you don't know about it, you can't protect it. So the challenge of visibility is becoming multifold today in the cloud environment. We're talking about hybrid cloud environments, not even one cloud now. We're talking about multiple data centers, keeping a consistent security layer across everything. You can't have data centers A, which has 10 versions behind on security, data center B, which is you don't even know what exists there, right? You might have IDS in one place, might not be on the other place. You're optimizing the cost. You're trying to understand how this will, pan out for your security architecture. So essentially, the way I see for financial services, given that I can bring in the global perspective as well as the Asia Pacific perspective here, is that the challenges across people, process, technology are growing multifold, right? You've got a technology which is cloud, you're embracing, your data is no longer within your reach. How do you protect it? How do you make sure that there is a consistent security posture? The other is a bigger challenge of manpower, right? You have got 10 different things in your premise and even on the cloud. How do you make sure you get the manpower to handle that ongoing basis, right? Today you have cloud A, you train people on cloud A. Tomorrow you'll have cloud B, you keep training them, you keep upskilling them, and there comes a time when they're actually very hot for the market and they just move out, right? And the third point I want to touch upon is the automation, and that's where the processes are, right? Today, I mean, a lot of insurance, like I said, completely going digital. How do you embed security in that automation? How does it become? And then that's where the orchestration and DevSecOps play such an important role, because every second matters when it comes to cybersecurity. We all know that, right? By the time you realize it, most of the organizations are already late in applying some sort of controls. So those are like 2-3 broader things that I see in a digital acceleration as a challenge, which most of us see here as well, and it is globally accepted as a fact that this is a challenge that we see.
Thanks, Aseem, for those thoughts. And I think what you're saying is really important. I picked up few elements: visibility. How do you really look at and get the visibility? Security at scale, and that's really important. And we are seeing challenges coming in the environment, in the country as well as globally, wherever when we are talking, that it's a very important thing to make sure that security can be taken to a scale, and it means various things, not just simply the high capacity, but scaling up as the organization grows. Manpower, DevSecOps. I think all of these are really, really important elements. And this actually also brings me to another question which is related, and I'll again come back, Abhilash, to you on this. Is that this rapid increase in the digitalization and the digital business model, it is really requiring businesses to move fast. Gone are the days where businesses were saying that we'll conceive a product today, design it for 6 months, 8 months, and then go and implement that, and then the implementation also will take a period of time. Businesses want that the things to happen in a matter of no time. And in this situation, if I also add in the point that if you ask a sales leader, he would say that, or she would say that the customer convenience needs to be protected at any cost. I don't want anything to come between a convenient experience to the customer and my product offering. So how do you look at these requirements with the need for robust cybersecurity? Because many a times these two requirements are not converging, they are divergent, right? Bringing cybersecurity, many times people say, will bring in a degree of friction. Bringing a lot of good practices will also delay stuff. So if you could share some of your practical experiences and views to the audience, that will be great.
Sure. So you've rightly put, it's a fight between convenience and the risk. Okay. So for business, it's convenience. So if you ask me, a lot of security products, you talk about the antivirus, you talk about the DLP solutions, what gets implemented. At times, it might create a problem. So for example, take example of a database server. Your endpoint security solutions at times might so there's a heavy activity that happens on the database. So it might consider that as an abnormal behavior. So if you do not configure it properly, it might treat that as an abnormal behavior and try to block that. By doing that, either the service gets impacted or the utilization of the CPU gets high. So again, for business, any downtime, so even minor downtime is not acceptable. So for us to convince them, okay, yes, there could be problems, but it's for the greater good. So that becomes difficult. So to put in a nutshell, we are living in a world where customer information sells like hotcakes. So we have seen with respect to the number of breaches that have happened in the recent past, and we don't expect us to be on the front page of any news article. Okay. Having said that, the primary so for us, any customer information is very important. So securing that data is critical. So we are in the business of insurance, and primarily what we say is we would simplify the journey of the customer, whether it is buying a policy or applying for a claim. Now, to make this simple, yes, there are a lot of technological advancement that has happened. At the same time, there are a lot of loopholes that we have to plug. Okay, by doing that, so what we are essentially doing is we are adopting certain industry best practices, like limiting access to the data. So not everyone requires access to sensitive information. So we try to restrict those kind of access only need to know basis. Plus, we have implemented a lot of the common principles like authentication, authorizations, and importantly, there are data leakage solutions implemented. But yes, you can implement world-class solutions. You do not configure it properly, it again is of no use. So again, I'll come back to the core topic. It's convenience versus risk. So for business, they want to send out data to anyone and everyone. So they would be engaging with partners, they would be engaging with new business associates, etc. So I have to go back to them and tell and ask them, okay, this is critical data. Do you want to block it? Do you want to keep it for only internal circulations? There is no response. Okay, so is the DLP solution working in an optimum fashion? Maybe not. So the solutions are there unless it is configured properly. There is so you're not getting a proper ROI of that product. So that's probably a key challenge that we are facing today. But I think people are wary about the current situation. So they're reading in the newspapers about the breaches that has been happening, about the impact of various threats. People are coming forward, but yes, we have to reach a place where security becomes important as business, or at least there's a balance between both.
Thanks, Abhilash. And I think a couple of points that you made, which I have noted. One is around how do you make sure that the configurations and the setups are done properly? Because otherwise, one, it can give a false sense of belief that things are secure. Two, it can create a lot of friction, which is avoidable. So yeah, I think right configuration is clearly something which I noted, and then other point, yes, there are attacks and those are creating challenges. The organizations are learning the hard way and then really moving the needle up. But that's not the desired, thing. It has
right
to come in on an ongoing basis. And in that sense, Pawan, if I come to you and request your thoughts on how are you managing this, the difference expectations in terms of speed and convenience in one side and high security or strong security on the other side? What has been your experience and how have you gone about achieving the both ends meet?
There are two major challenges which any organization could relate to, what every organization could face. One, business is always a priority. So security is never given up, is never there in the list when it comes down to designing a product or launching something which a business required to be launched at the earliest at maybe in a few days of time. Security has to be built in. But business needs to understand that security has to be built in from day one. You can't have security at a later stage and then ask them to work on it and allow their product to be launched because it's a business need. The way we are tackling it is we have created multiple security gates within the organization itself. So first of all, the security comes at the first stage itself, even when the thought process come into the picture of designing something and launching something, a product, or maybe even if it is a third-party product which are getting integrated to the current product, security team has been involved from day one. Second, the evaluation of the product needs to be done very, very thoroughly and categorically to ensure that there are no current loopholes in the system. Security is not 100%. Loopholes will be there. It may come over a period of time, but as a security professional, we need to ensure that there are no current loopholes which may lead to which may put your organization at risk at this stage when you are launching the product. Second, when you are developing an internal product, when you are developing a product within the organization, there are two security gates which, as I mentioned, we have written in the SDLC cycle itself. One comes at a USD stage. Security has been consulted from day one, but when the product reaches the UAT stage, it has to pass security gate 1, where we get the assessment done and we ensure that there are no loopholes in the product. Even if there are reported vulnerabilities, those need to be fixed before the development cycle moves forward. And the second comes when the product reaches the final stages of production. So at that point of time, it again gets reevaluated before it gets launched. And then we have put but that has been pushed by the regulator. That's the reason I do not say it as a third security gate, because that's the annual assessment we need to do for all the application. That has been pushed by the regulator, and it has been recommended by the regulator. So you get it done every year, so you know what all loopholes and changes are there, what all loopholes are there over a period of time in case anything comes up. Another important aspect is people tend to make changes in the application based on business needs, but it is also important to do the security assessment at that stage as well. And that has to be built in the SDLC cycle itself. Even if a small change happens, it is a good practice to get the security assessment done before you push that into the production as well. Now, I'll come to the second aspect, which is the user behavior. So that's anyways a bigger challenge. Like I mentioned initially, that you need to learn the user behavior, what they are doing, how they are accessing, what they are assessing, and then create a security parameter in and around. So employee experience comes plays a very important role here. When you can build a product, but if it is not delivering value to your customer and to your employees within the organization, it will be of no use. And similarly, as a security professional, we keep on facing such challenges. For example, I can give you from the recent experience when we were implementing EDR, there was a lot of resistance from people. Because what EDR does, it analyzes each and every behavior of your employee, even if a single clip, anything which has been copied and pasted somewhere, maybe from the internet or from one file to another, it actually reads everything and then analyze those before it's allow you to get the data pasted on the other document. And that's where the resistance was, that the system has become slow. But how you can overcome that challenge, and that's where I second the point which Abhilash has made. You can buy a Lamborghini, but you will not do anything unless you know how to drive it, right? So the configuration needs to be done very correctly of the system, and that's where we also initially faced a challenge, and slowly over a period of time we have overcome those challenges, because these product comes with a lot of loaded features, right? So it is very important for you to analyze what features does your organization require, and what can impact a user, what cannot impact a user, and what is the minimum base configuration you should have to start with. And over a period of time, you should add other features which may be required or may add value to your organization. There's no point of enabling all the features in day one itself, because it's there in the product. You should enable it by default. Now that's a wrong practice. I mean, you need to learn the product. You need to learn to customize it, and then only you implement security in and around, depending on the need of the user, need of the organization, and need of your customer. That's how we have been able to overcome many of the challenges which have been faced by the organization today. Over to you, Kunal.
Thanks, Pawan. I think the really useful point which you have made, one is clearly the gating process. How do you make sure that it is embedded in the organization? I think both are equally important. Process to be there, and making sure that the entire organization follows that. And I'm sure it has taken a lot of effort at your end to do it, because I have seen that being done. And then doing things rightly, whether it is right product as well as clearly the right configuration. And sometimes in my conversation I give example that if 20 years back a security product was like driving a car, today's products are like fighter planes, and one needs to know all the controls, what will be the desired as well as unintended consequences of switching something on or off, and making sure that you've done it rightly, so that the right outcome is achieved, and the business also is happy around it. So definitely that is there. I also somewhere see if I can add something is around the agility of doing things, because how do you respond fast in this time where time is money, and more, meaning it was always money, but today it is much more. So that, I think, if I move forward on the same area, but little, moving ahead, we are seeing that cloud is being adopted significantly, and there is hardly any organization who would say that they are not adopting or have completely adopted cloud. And also when it comes to cloud with this, the environment, there is what I think Aseem and Abhilash, I think you mentioned earlier, and Naseem, I think you also mentioned earlier, there is adoption of DevSecOps, which is there. So if you look at these newer, or I would say relatively newer things which are being adopted by the organizations, whether it is cloud, whether it is DevOps, how do you handle the security aspects? And this is where I wanted to first, Naseem, come to you. You being part of an organization who is cloud native in that sense, how have when you look at cloud and we look at DevOps as capabilities, what are some of the key considerations, key elements you look at as a key areas of focus from a cybersecurity perspective, and what measures you have taken to address that? If you could share some insights from your experiences to the audience. Naseem, if you could please come in.
Sure. So there is a disclaimer, before I start. Whatever I'm going to share, it's my own thought, my own, experience. It's nothing related to Echo. It's all about, I think before this question, you asked a very valid question, that is, how digitalization is happening, why these CISOs are facing so much challenge between convenience and, the security. So the first thing is that if there is no digitalization, I can say, I have doubt that, this session will happen. So I can say in this way. And I think the digitalization also, give us job. So that way, they require this many of CISOs. If this problem is not there, we are doing something else, right? So that is the point number one. And, any business, anything we're doing, it's all about, what kind of risk you are taking, right? I'm doing insurance business, means I'm putting in, let's say, 100 rupees, I want to make it, 150 or 250. But if I do that, how much risk I am ready to take, right? So cybersecurity is nothing but a, similar kind of concept is coming. If you want to reach out any customer, if you want to go to digital platform, what is the purpose? I want to, scale up my business. Today, if I consider a couple of, name like Fresh to Home, this Licious, they are like a vegetable vendor, meat vendor. Earlier, one meat vendor might be have a business area, I can say, radius of 4 kilometer or 5 kilometer. If they are connected with them, the radius become, I think, at least 30-40 kilometer, right? So that is the agility is there, right? It will give you that might of reach to your customer. You can reach in that level of customer. And in terms of, convenience and all these things, it's all about how exactly you are going to convince your business leader. Let's say, Kunal is developing some business using some data. If I tell you, Kunal, if you do this business, in this way, I'm sure out of 100, might be 80% customer will convert it. There will be 20% customer, they will not convert it, but it's a high chance they will go to your opponent or might be your competitor. And if you do this much here, believe me, out of this 20, I'm sure out of this 20%, at least they will not go to your competitor. And you can, there is a high chance you can convert them from this 20 to at least 5% more or 10% more. I can tell you, Kunal will be happiest person, and he will come to me in each and every case. Naseem, I'm doing this, how I can enhance this thing. So similar way, we are into that, cloud, we are into that, DevSecOps or DevOps. So we are saying, okay, you want to do this business, you want high availability, we'll offer you that thing differently. So we say, okay, we will not build anything on our head. We'll use the topmost cloud provider in the market, and we'll host everything from there. Now, in terms of DevSecOps, we want that, product should be ready within as much as, the agility should not be, agility should be there, and this agility should not be killed by any parameters, right? So if I say, okay, in my developer, when they are coding something, if I have some kind of good plugins in the market, which will tell my developer continuously based what is the best practice to write a, code. What are the things you cannot do a hard binding or hard coding on that code? How exactly, if I have a CI/CD pipeline, at the same time when my code is pushing for I can say for that quality test, at the same time if I also can able to do my security test, I'm saying my my business leader, dude, I will complete my security on the same time whatever we have assigned to come out the product. And I will also assure you that it will also give you additional feature to your product. It will also secure your product. It will also give you that rate of conversion on on a higher side. So that's the way you have to handle, right? If you have a CI/CD pipeline, you can continue your secure coding review in that same pipeline. If you have some automation on that, you can also able to do the SAS, dash, and in the same time when it will be in production, before go run, you just need to have a one click and it will be in production. So that's the way you have to build the culture. That's the way you have to. I can say a little bit loudly. You have to sell it internally in this way. And I think that's a better way to sell it. And if you sell it in this way, everybody will going to accept, right? Each and every one want that, being a CISO, I also want that my business should be improved. Then only I will get some additional benefit in terms of bonus or anything extra, right? So that's the ultimate goal for all of us. We are taking that risk. We want to develop our wealth. We want to create a big asset. And for that, how much risk we are going to take? It should be a concerned risk. You should know what are risks you are taking. Let's say I'm opening some API to some of my partner to give a better experience to my customer. So okay, if this is the thing, what may happen to me, and how I can mitigate those things if something wrong happened to me. If I have this plan, I think we are good to follow this agility.
Sure. No, thanks, Naseem. And I think very well said that one has to bring the business context, and in that sense, I think all CISOs are salesperson who are telling the the message in the right way, which businesses are understanding, and bringing in the right security elements into it, and of course the elements which you mentioned around CI/CD pipeline, which can help in making sure the security is brought in an efficient and fast manner. Same question, Aseem. If I move to Aseem to you, and you are from a technology organization background, and you would be seeing number of organizations who are trying to adopt these solutions, have also adopted. So what would be your advice to the audience in terms of adopting good security, robust security practices when they are going for cloud, DevSecOps, and these digital capabilities in this world? So Aseem, if you could share your thoughts.
Sure. I think that's a golden goose chase for many organizations. Often and not as much as we like, a lot of organizations, if not all, fall short in their journey. And obviously, it's a continuous learning curve. We learn, we improvise. What we need to keep in mind is that cloud will bring a significant architectural and thought shift in whatever you do. So there are two things that needs to be tackled. One is the architectural shift, for you as an organization, for you as an insurance and banking space. The second is the thought process change, which goes in the boardroom with the people, your processes, and ultimately it's like marrying the both of them that you get a right strategy of how you move forward. With the cloud, as I always say, you need to carry your own umbrella when it rains in the cloud. Ultimately, as an organization, you are responsible. There's always a joint responsibility, but data is yours. You are accountable if the user data breach happens, right? So your security strategy should be aligned with what your goals are that you're trying to achieve. Now, into the specifics of like DevSecOps as an example, if you want to embrace it, you got to map your existing CI/CD processes and understand what benefits you're going to get in what place, right? It's not just about integration or deployment. It's about monitoring. It's about alerting. It's about analytics. There are various things that come as a part and parcel of the overall CI/CD automation. if you do not have the right framework today, it's less likely you will succeed in cloud as well, right? So cloud will give you automation and tools to do it. You're still going to be mapping that to your existing CI/CD processes to make sure you get the best out of it, right? Do you have right alerting? Do you have right monitoring, right? Ultimately, this ties up to the earlier question that you mentioned, Kunal, is that are you going to use methods that are going to be transparent? It should be seamlessly working with your CI/CD for your users, internal, or are you going to be using things that will, be a deterrent for the user experience or the internal business operations, right? So it has to be very carefully planned out with your existing. As you uncover that, you will find some gaps in your existing processes. You will need to map that in the cloud and go from there, right? But in terms of all of this, cloud, obviously your attack surface is exponentially increased. You have to worry about a lot of security, and I'll give you an example. Because of the automation and DevSecOps, a lot of developers today, if not all, but a significant chunk of your API code and your code actually exists on the external cloud services like GitHub, as an example, right? It's not uncommon that the hackers will infiltrate your code base, your API schemas in the GitHub, and in many cases they found the API keys. If you've got not good practices for your securing your API keys or rotating them in a timely manner, if you don't have that principle applied, they will get access through to your corporate network and your code base using those API keys, right? And this is just one example. I mean, there are literally thousands of examples like that. You got a SaaS partner today that you work with. So you're providing a functionality through a SaaS partner. If your SaaS partner is down because of the lack of scale, doesn't matter if your origin or your data center is up, the user is not going to be able to access that resource because your partner in middle is down, right? So with the cloud, there comes you need to be thinking about scale. Not every cloud is built in the same way. Not every cloud will give you the level of functionality that you need for the scale, for agility, for security. I think those are important things to consider when you're evaluating and trying to understand, how the cloud will benefit you. Something that will give you compute today, or something that gives you software as a service today, is not necessarily always the best option that will provide you security, right? And vice versa. Platforms that provide you better security may not always provide you the compute. So it's all about your risk appetite. It's all about understanding where you want to evolve as an organization and what your current processes are. Cloud definitely will bring your risk exposure, take it to a next level. You still need to be, very diligent about what sort of controls you apply. One thing I can tell you where cloud really helps, is unifying the security architecture. That's what I mentioned about earlier. Yeah. This is a significant architectural shift that you need to think about. And today, if you have 100 pieces of software and hardware that they don't talk to each other, it's highly unlikely you're going to be automating all of them, right? It's a 10-year, 20-year project. You will try, you will fail, and at some point you will give up. What cloud makes it really easy to adopt is to embrace a unified architecture or a security solution, if you may, using which you can apply security in a very unified way. Okay, you want to apply multi-factor authentication, there you go, turn this feature on. You want to apply web application firewall, turn this on, without having to worry about 100 devices that don't talk to each other.
Sure. Well, thanks, Aseem. I think this is a really useful and interesting point which you have made. Cloud has an architectural shift, but also a thought shift. And I do agree, cloud is a menu, and you have to make sure you choose the things rightly. And I think assumptions could be really damaging in cloud because when you look at what are the security requirements, you can't assume that the cloud provider is going to do everything. You have to carefully look at what is that cloud provider is going to be doing, what is the cloud provider's responsibility, and what as a consumer is your responsibility. And equally important, the last point which you mentioned, which I noted, was the visibility. It is again, I do agree that having a unified visibility on what are the risks, how are you addressing those, what are the open items. That's again very important given this proliferating ecosystem where more and more changes come in a fast pace. So being on top of things is, again, I think it's very, very important. We're coming towards the end of our session, but one question which I just wanted to, probably very specific one, I wanted to ask Pawan to you, and then maybe we'll take thoughts of you also, is on the question of resilience. We are seeing regulator also becoming very, very focused around resilience, where the question is that the outage is not an option, because any outage really makes customers suffer a lot, and it also brings in a lot of challenges on the door of the regulator and of course to the organization. So in this element where resilience is becoming very, very important, what are the key considerations in building a resilient technology? So Pawan, if you could probably again coming and share your thoughts of what are you seeing and what would be your advice to the audience.
First and the foremost, before defining the resilience strategy, you need to first understand the requirement of the organization. Just don't go by the name of the product or name of the technologies, because I have seen people running behind a technology just because of the name, because they feel that others are adopting it, we should also adopt it. That should not be the way people should be opting for. You need to look at, and as a CISO or as a technological professional, you need to first understand the requirement of the organization, and then only jump onto the second level, which is selecting the technology which you would like to opt for, and which is best suited for the organization, will give a good result to the organization. Like Aseem has mentioned, the objective which is defined for the organization, that has to be met. And the objective is not only towards the organization, but towards your customer as well, to give them seamless experience. In that, the resilience plays a very important role. The second step is, while selecting a technology or building the environment, you need to choose, you need to be very vigilant of the fact that things are changing rapidly today. When we look at where we were 1.5 or 1 year, 8 months to be precise, I mean, it all started since January 2020. And honestly, I've been working from home since March 2020 and not seen my office yet. In such a kind of an environment, anything can happen in coming future as well. So the infrastructure or the product adaptation has to be done in such a way that you need to have redundancy built in within the environment itself. Then comes the third aspect, which is the security. While building a strategy for the organization, security cannot be at the last stage. You need to consider security from day one, and accordingly, the other things you have to start building up, keeping two things in mind. One, it should not your aspect of becoming a resilient organization or a future ready organization should not become a showstopper. You need to be very, very vigilant of the fact, and it's not only the vigilant, but you need to be very much aware of the fact that you choose a technology which is future ready, which should give you an adoption of multiple products using one single client. So you may have, you cannot fall in a scenario or in a trap where you install 10 different clients on your machine, because then you are killing the end user experience, which is your employees' experience, who will be working on multiple aspects to deliver your customer. If you put 10 different products, it will load on the system, and then the experience will vary depending on the configuration of the machine. So what you need to build is what organization you are selecting is focused upon, and how he's going, that organization is going to help you out in future. Second, if I look at the customer aspect, the customer comes first. You need to open multiple gates for the customers. Where I remember Abhilash mentioned talking about when customer reaches you, when they are buying the policy, when they are surrendering the policy, when they are reaching out in case of a problem, or when the policies are getting matured, and within the entire journey, you go back to your customer and take experience. There has to be a seamless process in place where you go back to the customer and take an honest feedback from them, and then work on the suggestions accordingly. You need to be future ready. You need to be agile. You need to be agile. You need to be prompt in responding to your customer, and that is how you can define your resilient strategy for the organization. And that's what I would like to opt for and move forward accordingly.
Thank you, Pawan. I would love to continue the discussion, but I've got an indicator that we are, up in the time. But I would really like to thank each one of the panelists in sharing your experiences. And let me maybe just summarize some of the key points which we have learned today for audience benefit. One and the foremost was user awareness. It's very important to have the right kind of user awareness, and keep building awareness to make sure they convert into habits, because habits are something which user acts on, and it's important that the awareness is not just in the mind but is in the actions of the user. So there are various things which can do, gamification, etc. I'll not get into that, but that is something which is extremely important. Having the right kind of tooling, so whether we go for EDR as panelists mentioned, or we go for DLP, or we build right kind of cloud strategy, DevSecOps strategy, the right tooling which is configured correctly. I think that is very, very important. One has to understand what is the landscape you are trying to protect. No, do not assume. Understand it clearly. Have the right tools. Do not overdo the tools, because again, it can create challenges in the convenience side of the customers. But then configure them rightly so that you're getting the desired results, and you're not overdoing it, as well as you're not leaving gaps around. And then clearly the elements around architecture. When you're adopting newer things, there is an architectural shift which is there. So understand what is the architectural shift which is happening. Look at the change in your approach so that security can be built in by design, and you can have the right agility to be brought in the security side also, so that the ultimate need of giving very high quality experience to the customer is maintained. And last but not the least, as you are adopting newer technologies, it's important to have a good visibility of what are your security challenges, what risks your organization is facing at any point of time, so that you can focus your energies and build the right controls to address those. So those are some of the learnings which I had. I would really again like to thank all my panelists. I hope the audience also enjoyed the session. Thank you, and back to you, E.T.
Thank you, speakers. Thanks, Kunal, for such a perceptive session. It was a pleasure hearing all of you on this important topic. I'm sure this session gave our participants some really enriching insights today. So thank you again. I would also like to thank the audience for being part of this significant roundtable. Hope to see you soon in our next session. Have a good day and stay safe.